Hey guys, hope you're all well. It's cold and raining here. It doesn't feel like summer at all. And it's 12:30 in the PM. I'm doing this a little bit earlier than I planned because I've got some stuff to do, non-YouTube stuff. And I also want to watch the trial for that absolute nutcase, Taylor's Your Business, which starts in a couple of hours. So for those of you who caught my very late night live stream last night, late night for me, not for probably most of you, Taylor was found guilty of all charges after just 3 days of a trial and a 42-minute deliberation. 42 minutes. She was found guilty of murder. However, there's a phase 2 of this trial. This seems to be what they do in Wisconsin when someone's mental capability or mental disease is called into question. So phase 2 of the trial starts today. It's not going to last very long, I don't think, but that's what I am waiting for. Yes, I have been to sleep. Yeah, I got off my live at about 1:15. I went to bed and I've had about 6 hours sleep. So that's good enough for me. I'm a little bit tired, but not much. So anyway, in this live stream, we are talking about the gorgeous little boy who is Michael Joseph Vaughan, who has been missing now for 2 years. 2 years today, Michael went missing from outside of his home in Fruitland, Idaho. So it's been an absolutely devastating few months in Michael's case. And what I want to do today is just to remind everyone of Michael's case, review the whole case, and kind of end with where we're at now. Now, apparently, there is going to be an update from Fruitland PD later today. Now, in Fruitland, it's probably, 6:30, I think, in the morning, or even 5:30. Yeah, maybe 5:30. So it definitely won't come during this live stream. But I decided not to wait for it because I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know whether it's going to be a press conference or it's just going to be some kind of written communication. If it's a press conference, then I'll come back. I'll come back and I'll stream the press conference. But I'm thinking maybe it's more likely to be a written update. And if so, then I'll just put it on my community wall. But at least Fruitland PD are going to acknowledge that Michael has been missing for 2 years. Unlike in the Summer Wells case, where Summer had her 2-year mark last month, and TBI didn't want to comment, and the sheriff didn't want to comment. Nobody wanted to comment. So Fruitland PD are just streets ahead of Hawkins County. Not that we should really compare, but yeah, Fruitland PD have been amazing. Hawkins County, not so much. So I want to start right at the beginning and talk about Michael a little bit and the day of his disappearance. This is Michael. If you're not familiar with Michael, he was just 5 years old. He just had his 5-year birthday when he disappeared. So his birthday is the 24th of June, I believe. So he'd only been 5 for a short month. And bless him, very active little boy, just very engaged, very intelligent, and just wanted to play. And that was what happened to Michael on the day he disappeared. He just wanted to go and play. He wanted to go and find his friends and go and play. And unfortunately, he was abducted just yards away from his home. And we do know he was abducted. There's no ambiguity in this case. There are 4 suspects in this case, but sadly, there hasn't been any charges as of yet. Last November, so November 2022, there was a massive developments. If you remember back, if you followed this case then, and I sat here right in this seat day after day as they dug up a house only half a mile away from Michael's home. So we're going to talk about that as well. And I'm going to play you a section of the last press conference that was utterly devastating. It was devastating. But yeah, he does look like his mommy. Yeah, he does. I think he has a look of both, honestly. But he's such a happy soul. And, you know, the police are very sure that he's no longer with us, that Michael was murdered. But those 4 suspects are... well, there's no charges, put it that way. One of them, Stacey Wanderer, he's in jail anyway on federal charges. Sarah Wanderer, we'll get to her. Let's not preempt what we're going to talk about. But hello everyone, by the way. I've got into the habit of not saying hello to people when I start a live stream. And I know that upsets some people. But yeah, what's going on? Well, we're going to get an update later. But hello. Okay. All right. Okay, this is the timeline that I put together after the year. There was a press conference at Michael's year to mark his year of being missing. So last July. And at that point, there'd been no developments at all. The police knew he'd been abducted, but they'd not given any indication that they were following any major leads. There were some details presented at that press conference that we hadn't heard. For example, I don't know whether I've got it in this PowerPoint presentation or not. Yeah, that was released. They wanted to speak to this guy. That was released last year. Now, whether that turned out to be one of the 4 suspects, I don't know. Kind of looks like one of them. But yeah, so I put this timeline together based on the press conference from July 2022 and also some things that Michael's mother had talked about online. Brandy had talked about online. So let's quickly run through the timeline. Now, I appreciate that if you've been following this case from day one, then you know all of these details. But I like to, you know, start from the beginning if I'm doing a case review, and kind of take it for granted. I think we all do, in some respects, take it for granted that when someone views a video or comes to a live stream that you know everything about the case, and that's not the case at all. Some people are just coming into a case and need this kind of basic background. Sonia, member for 15 months. Thank you for the continued support. Thank you. You wish they could locate those 2 guys. I do believe they know where they are. I think they know where they are. So you mean Adrian Lucien and Brandon Shirtliff? Yeah, I think they know who they are. Or where they are. I'm not entirely sure. That's my impression, that they have located them. Okay. All right. So on the 27th of July, 2021, Michael was at home with his dad, Tyler. His mother, Brandy, had gone to work around lunchtime-ish. And she called in the afternoon to just check up. And Michael was playing on his video games. He had a Nintendo Switch, which he really liked, liked playing video games. But he was a very active little boy, very intelligent little boy, and he liked playing out. And this was a summer's day, and early evening, Michael was maybe getting itchy feet, maybe just wanted to go and find his friends in the street. Now, he'd gone to various neighbours in the past to kind of play. There was, I think there was a family with a trampoline that he liked to go and play at that house. Obviously, his parents knew where he was and, supervised him. But this particular evening, for around 15 minutes or so, Michael slipped out of Tyler's sight. Now, Tyler was preoccupied because Michael has a little sister who was only a baby at the time, and he went to change the baby's diaper in the bedroom. And Tyler believed Michael was in the living room playing on his Switch. So for around 15 or so minutes, Tyler was preoccupied changing the baby's diaper. And then around 6:40, Tyler ordered pizza for dinner. And it's at that point that Tyler realised that Michael wasn't in the house. So Tyler searched the house, like from top to bottom, and around 7 o'clock, so he'd searched the house, he went in the backyard, went in the workshop, which is out the back, and 20 minutes later decided to go out and look for Michael. But unfortunately, during that 20-minute window, Michael had been abducted. Now, between 6:37 is a time that we know Michael was still on the street at that time. And at 6:37, a neighbour saw Michael out on the front street and took him back to his yard, but unfortunately didn't take him all the way to the door and alert Tyler that Michael was out on the front on his own. And can't blame the neighbour. I bet that neighbour is regretful and will be regretful forever about not just taking Michael and banging on the door and saying, Michael's here. But I do believe it was the neighbour who they were just about to go shopping, about to go to Walmart. So, maybe they were preoccupied as well. But Michael, in around maybe about a 10-minute window, maybe thereabouts, Michael was seen by several neighbours. One of them looked out the window and saw Michael putting his flip-flop back on. So bending down and putting his flip-flop back on. Michael had apparently got these flip-flops for his birthday, and they were still a tiny bit too big for him. But he'd gone out with these flip-flops on, and he was heading east So I will show you the map here. Let me just share the old map with you here. Okay, this is the map. I think it will be easier to explain. Mississippi girl, member for 19 months. And Emily, member for 21 months. You must have been one of my very, very first members. And then Sassafras member for 9 months. Wow. Thank you, you guys. Okay, I'm just going to have to move my microphone out of the way a minute. So I'm going to knock it. So Michael lives here. Right here. This is Fruitland, Idaho. So if we just zoom out and... Oh, that's zooming in. Zoom out. Zoom out. And get a feel for Fruitland. So this is kind of the main part of Fruitland. And then Michael lives in this subdivision here. And it's very close to the border with Oregon. So on the east side of the Snake River, which is right here, is Idaho. And then on the west side is Oregon. So when Michael first went missing, the fact that they were so close to a state line and also so close to an interstate really, really concerned me, because that's a prime target for an abduction, close to a state line and close to an interstate. Always troubles me, especially in child cases. So Michael's home is in this part here, and this is Southwest 9th Street. So Michael came out of his house and he was going east along Southwest 9th Street. He was taken back to his yard, as I said, by the neighbour around 6:37, but then they left and Michael didn't go in the house, and he knocked on several neighbours' doors. Like I said, he was seen east by a neighbour who saw him out of a window putting his flip-flop on. Apparently, according to Brandy, Michael's mother, search dogs actually tracked him to, I think, this corner. I don't think they tracked him all the way down, but they did track him for a little way anyway. They tracked his scent for a little way. And again, according to Brandy, he was caught on surveillance of at least one neighbour. Where he was probably going was just here. So literally round the corner. I think that's where he was heading, because this is the splash pad. So it's a little park and there's a splash pad. Now I've got a pin in there that says adult males, because there were 2 adult males very, very early on in the case. There was 2 adult males that the police wanted to identify who were hanging around the splash pad. And there was that one adult male that was outstanding as of the press conference last July. But we don't know whether that male turned out to be one of the suspects. Certainly not Stacey or Sarah Wanderer, because their body composition is very different. But Adrian Lucian and Brandon Shirtliff are kind of skinny guys, or at least they look it. So whether it was one of those, I don't know. But I think Michael was going to go along here, up here, and to the splash pad, because he enjoyed it going there. And apparently he got out of the house once before, and his grandpa had brought him back, and he was out heading for the splash pad. So that's where Tyler went. Tyler assumed that Michael had gone to the splash pad. So around 7 p.m, when Tyler had thoroughly searched the house, you know, turn the place upside down. Because kids do the darndest things, don't they? They go and hide in a cupboard or under a bed and think it's funny. And once Tyler was absolutely convinced that Michael wasn't there, and he wasn't in the yard, and he wasn't in the shop, then Tyler got in the car and went to the splash pad. Got to the splash pad at 7:02, and he wasn't there either. So that window that the police gave us, I have to stop sharing this and reshare my... I should have just put my thing on a slides. That would have been easier for everybody. The 20-minute window that the police gave us is probably likely to be closer to just 10 minutes, because Michael was seen by neighbours in those kind of few minutes after 6:37. And just unfortunately, around 6:40, just after Tyler had ordered pizza, when he realised that Michael was missing, he decided to search the house first, which stands to reason. It's logical that if Michael was in the living room and Tyler didn't hear him slip out of the door, then it's logical to search the house first rather than heading out onto the street. It's exactly what I would have done. But unfortunately, in the time, in that 20 minutes that Tyler was searching the house, Michael had been abducted. Purple AJ, member for 21 months. Thank you so much. It's so dangerous for kids. I know. He was right in front of his house on a suburban street. A nice neighborhood, nice, quiet neighborhood. And this isn't some kind of urban ghetto where there's guns and knives all over the place. This is a quiet street. Michael should have been safe to be out there for a few minutes on his own. I mean, I wouldn't recommend a kid going out playing on their own at age 5, but he should have been safe. And he just wasn't, because he encountered a monster or monsters. So Michael had just disappeared. So Tyler got to the splash pad at 7:02. He rang Brandy whilst continuing to search the neighbourhood. Neighbours started to come out and search. And at 7:21, Tyler made the 911 call. So went all around the neighbourhood. And remember, this is a small neighbourhood. This is away from kind of the main town of Fruitland. This is a neighbourhood that kind of sits on its own, if you will. And Tyler drove all around looking for Michael, shouting for Michael. Neighbours were out shouting for him. And Fruitland Police Department headquarters are very close to Michael's house. So they were there in a matter of only a few minutes. So easily by 7:30, the whole town knew that Michael, or at least the whole neighbourhood knew, and they had police on the ground starting a search. But it was too late. Unfortunately, it was too late. And that's all we knew until November 2022, when there was a shock announcement that an arrest had been made. And the arrest was Sarah Wanderer. Now, her husband, Stacey Wanderer, so this is Stacey, this is Sarah. Stacey Wanderer was already in jail on federal charges. So I don't know what the state of his case is. He's been in jail. He was already in jail in November when Sarah was arrested. But a tip had led them to this house, 1102 Redwing Street, which is in the same neighbourhood. It's just half a mile away, even less, actually. It's less than half a mile away from Michael's house. And a tip led them here. Now, the tip apparently came from someone inside the home, so we kind of assume that that was Stacey Wanderer talking from inside jail that had led them there. And this is how close it is. I mean, look at that. Half a mile walking, 9 minutes walking, but what, less than a minute, I would say, in a vehicle from Michael's house. So a monster cruising around. Now, whether they were cruising around in a car or cruising around on foot, unknown. We don't know. But so close. So close. Like, they would have heard the commotion. They would have heard them shouting for Michael. Because as, you know, more and more, you know, police got there, there would have been a helicopter out, there would have been dogs all over, and this search went on for weeks. Yeah, just 9 minutes walking. And that's, you know, that's Google speed. You could probably do it faster if you jogged. And as I said, there was this intriguing picture that they released in July 2022 that was caught on a neighbour surveillance of this man who appears, it's not very clear, but it appears to be talking on the phone. And as there's 4 suspects, then was this one suspect walking around looking for kids? We don't know. We don't know whether this guy's still relevant to the story or not. We've never been told that. For a long time, they were looking for this white Honda Pilot as well. But once Sarah Wanderer was arrested, then it kicked into overdrive. The entire case kicked into overdrive. And Sarah was charged with failing to notify the death of Michael. So she wasn't charged with his murder. She was charged with failing to notify. But there was 2 other young men living in the house at the time that Michael disappeared. And these are Adrian Lucien and Brandon Shirtliff. And we can only assume that as all 4 are suspects, that they assume that all 4 are in some way connected with Michael's death. That's the assumption, anyway. So this house, 1102 Redwing Street, Fruitland, they spent a week, or if not more. Don't think I've got any photos of the search. No, that's all Stacey and Sarah Wanderer's charges. But yeah, they spent a week digging up the backyard because there had been cadaver dog hits. They'd had several teams of cadaver dogs into that backyard, and they'd all hit in an area near the shed. So they dug up the entire yard, and they had to do it like an archaeological dig. So they take the top layer off, and then they chuck that away, and they search the entire kind of layer, and then they do the next layer and the next layer and the next layer, so that they're sure that they don't miss anything. And there's also obviously a lot of hand searching. So utterly painstaking work. Yeah, they could hear the machinery. Yeah, the family could hear the machinery. It was that close. It was that close. Did they search or dig anything under the trailer? It's not a trailer, it's a house. It's a house. So it's a house, like a suburban house, a fairly small backyard. Thankfully, it's a fairly small backyard, and a shed. They also dug up the neighbour's yard as well. We'll get there. We'll get there. Found no cadaver, no soil samples, must have returned nothing because the charges were dropped. Well, we'll get there, because we were hoping. I mean, you never want to hope that someone's dead. I mean, that's just insane. But at least for the family to have answers. If Michael was abducted and murdered, then, you know, I'm sure we all agree that that family deserves answers. Justice needs to be brought against the people that did this, and Michael needs to be brought home and laid to rest. So that's where we stood, with bated breath, waiting for a press conference. And I'm going to play you a small part of the press conference that happened on, what date was it at? December the 1st. So I streamed this live on December the 1st. So it wasn't the news that any of us hoped we'd hear. So I'm going to play you some parts of this. And yes, that is Chris McDonough in the background. Every time I've played clips from this press conference, I get comments like, is that Chris McDonough in the background? Yes, it is. Chris was there representing the Cold Case Foundation. The Cold Case Foundation have worked really hard in the background, in collaboration with the family and with Fruitland PD. I mean, the amount of effort that has gone into this investigation is immense. It's not just Fruitland PD, it's Idaho State Police, the FBI, Cold Case Foundation. They've worked so hard, and yet we've got nothing to show for it. We've got nothing to show for it. Did they also search the ground inside the shed? I don't know the answer to that. I assume so, Anna, because they took the entire backyard up. I assume so. But right, so I'm going to play just the main portion of this. This is the police chief from Fruitland PD, JD Huff, who has been immensely supportive of the family. And I think you can just see the pain on his face throughout this press conference here. I mean, it's just painful for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to play you a few minutes of this press conference. So this is from December 1st, 2022. I've got it on Michelle Walks if anybody wants to go back and listen to the whole press conference. It starts about an hour into the live stream. So let me know that the sound is okay once I press play.
As you know, from the time Michael went missing, this has been an all-hands-on-deck investigation, and it remains very active and an ongoing investigation. You can't take one of our most precious citizens from us and ever expect us to stop. During the course of this investigation to date, we received credible information that the remains of Michael Vaughan could be found in the backyard at 1102 Redwing Street in Fruitland. As a result, the Fruitland Police Department obtained a search warrant for the residence along with the front and backyards. That search warrant was served on November 11th. It was a Friday. We served that late in the evening. Upon entry, officers encountered Sarah Wandra, one of the known occupants of the home, and Sarah was subsequently arrested based on probable cause that she had knowledge of Michael's death and failed to report that death to law enforcement. The following day, the Fruitland Police Department, joined by the Idaho State Police, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, the Fruitland Fire Department, and the Fruitland Public Works Department, began a very methodical excavation of the backyard of the Wanderer's home. During that excavation process, the Idaho Mountain Search and Rescue, Mountain States detection dogs deployed multiple certified human remains detection dogs on the property, all of them alerting to the presence of human remains. Ground penetrating radar was also used and deployed, detecting anomalies in the backyard. We completed the excavation of the entire backyard and removed over 250 yards of dirt. Prior to backfilling the yard, the dirt was meticulously sifted for any potential human remains. We did not find Michael's remains. Although the remains of Michael Vaughan were not recovered, we strongly believe, based on evidence, that Michael was abducted and is deceased, and that his remains were buried and later moved from the property. As of today, the whereabouts of his remains are unknown. However, the investigation is active, fluid, and ongoing. Once the excavation was complete, we conducted a thorough search of the Wanderer's residence. The search was productive, and additional investigative evidence was recovered and is currently being processed. Evidence suggests that the following individuals who are currently in custody are involved in the abduction of Michael Vaughan. This is Sarah Wandra, 35 years old. Sarah lives at 1102 Redwing Street in Fruitland and was living there at the time of Michael's disappearance. We believe that Sarah has firsthand knowledge and is involved in Michael's abduction. Sarah Wandra is currently being held at the Payette County Jail for failing to report a death to law enforcement. This is Sarah's husband, Stacy Wandra, 30 years old, a male. Stacy was also living at 1102 Redwing Street in Fruitland and was living there at the time of Michael's disappearance. We believe that Stacy has firsthand knowledge and is involved in the abduction of Michael Vaughan. Stacy is currently being held in the Washington County Jail on unrelated charges. Now, the next individuals I'm going to introduce you to, let's go at the bottom there. This is Brandon Shirtliff, 30 years old, of Kuna, Idaho. Brandon was living with Sarah and Stacy Wandra at 1102 Redwing Street at the time of Michael's disappearance, and we believe Brandon has firsthand knowledge of Michael's abduction. Brandon is currently believed to be in North Dakota. Adrian Lucian, 32-year-old male out of Toledo, Ohio. Adrian was staying with Sarah and Stacy Wandra at 1102 Redwing Street at the time of Michael's disappearance, and we believe that Adrian has firsthand knowledge of Michael's abduction. Adrian is currently believed to be in Toledo, but floats between Ohio and California. I strongly encourage Shirtliff and Lucien to contact the Fruitland Police Department detectives as the window of time for talking and cooperation is coming to a close. This remains an active and ongoing investigation, with conversations taking place with the Payette County Prosecutor's Office about Michael's case and those individuals involved. We also believe that there are others associated with the Wanderers, Shirtliff, and Lucien, who may have knowledge of Michael's abduction, and I would strongly encourage them to come forward and speak with my detectives. When we finally reach the conclusion of this investigation, and I can assure you that we will, all of those who have knowledge of Michael's disappearance and have failed to report or hindered our investigation will be pursued. There's a moment in time to do the right thing and bring your information forward and cooperate. And that moment in time is now. To date, the Fruitland Police Department has received over 1,500 tips and leads, and we received many new leads since this phase of the investigation has began. We continue to ask our community for support and patience as we continue to aggressively work this case. We also ask that the Vaughan family's privacy continue to be respected, and we'll continue to post updates as information can be shared. Tips can be sent to findmichael@fruitland.org or to Crime Stoppers at 343cops.com or the Fruitland Police Department at 208-452-3110.
Okay. So that's the main portion of the conference. Get these guys' faces back on screen here, if I can. There we go. Oh, that my comments in the way. Oh, that's good enough. That's good enough. So the main kind of thrust of the kind of debate and media interest in this case after this press conference was in Sarah Wanderer. Emily has gifted a membership, and it's Angie Baby 1967 who has been the lucky winner. Thank you, Emily, and welcome, Angie. You get a month free to you, because Emily's paid for you a month membership. Yeah, so the media focused on Sarah Wanderer because she's in jail and things just stalled. They stalled very quickly because she was deemed incompetent to take part in her own defense. And then sadly, in April of this year, so April 2023, the case against Sarah Wanderer was dismissed. However, it wasn't that a conviction had been attempted and she was found not guilty, because in a case like that, they can't retry you. You know, double jeopardy. However, they had to dismiss because they didn't want to take the prosecution forward without concrete evidence. They charged her, but they didn't have concrete enough evidence for the prosecutor to feel comfortable to take it forward to trial because of that threat. The threat of taking it to trial and it being dismissed or found not guilty at trial because in those instances, however guilty she is, can't be retried for the same crime. So that's the state of play. Now, Sarah is still being charged with various unrelated offences. So she's not free and easy and living it up. She's got to face unrelated charges, similar to Stacey. Stacey's been in jail all this time on unrelated charges. Now, what happened to Adrian and Brandon? Well, it's my understanding that the police did catch up with these two guys. And it also came out that Brandon's mother's home had been searched. So Brandon was kind of flitting. He'd been staying at the Wanderers at the time of Michael's abduction, but he was staying at his mother's home in North Dakota. And his mother's home was searched, and they thought they'd got a cadaver hit there, but they didn't find anything. And it was possibly due to a leaking toilet, because cadaver scent that a cadaver dog is searching for, in small amounts, that cadaver scent, the cadaverine, putrescine, those scents that make up that horrible death scent, are also waste products of the living body. So they're products of the breakdown of protein. So if a toilet's been leaking into the ground, let's say there's a burst pipe in a drain somewhere, and it's been leaking out into the ground, then a dog is going to pick up on that because it's going to become concentrated. So it could be that this cadaver scent that a dog picked up on there wasn't that Michael had been buried in Brandon's mother's yard, but actually the result of a broken toilet or a burst pipe or something like that that had been leaking. So that's where we are with this case. So the last update we had was from April 17th, I think it was, that the news broke that Sarah's case had been dismissed. But let's be very clear, it does not mean that she cannot be rearrested in future. But it's pretty scary when JD Huff said that they believe that there's other people in addition to these 4, that there are other people who are potentially have knowledge or are the real culprit, I guess. You know, these 4 here might have had knowledge, might have had some kind of involvement, but not be the actual person who murdered Michael. Whether Michael's remains were actually buried in the yard of 1102 Redwing Street, we may never know unless someone confesses. I think with the multiple cadaver dog hits and the anomalies in the ground, it's quite possible that he was buried there and then later was moved. Equally, it's possible that these were false hits for whatever reason, and Sarah made a false confession. So, we don't know. So the last update was April. And then there is going to be an update later today by Fruitland PD. Now, as I said right at the beginning, if you've just come in right at the beginning, I don't know whether that's going to be a press conference. If it is, then I'll come back later and I'll stream the press conference. If it's just going to be a written update, though, like to Fruitland PD's social media, acknowledging that this is now 2 years and that the investigation is ongoing. We know the investigation is ongoing. We know the investigation is still with the prosecutors. We know that. We know this is still a very active investigation. And I'm guessing that if they can't disclose any further details as of today, then it will be a written update. Now, if it's just a written update, then I'll put that on my community tab. But that's the case in a nutshell. Yeah, let's be clear on this. That if someone if someone goes and poops in the woods, right? One poop in the woods, a cadaver dog is not going to hit on that one poop, because the amount of cadaver scent, so that, you know, that horrible smell that comes off a dead body. Like even a dead rat smells horrible. So imagine the stench of a body the size of a human. Well, we can smell that scent, right, when it's strong. And that scent is made up of various odors, mainly an odor called cadaverine, and then there's putrescine, and there's various other things that kind of mingle in. But it's a result of the breakdown of protein. So in the living body, right, when you consume protein, your body is constantly renewing itself, renewing cells, renewing its systems. So through the normal waste channels, peeing and pooping, we are releasing waste products. And in tiny, tiny, tiny amounts, a living body is releasing the breakdown of protein. But one poop or one pee in the woods is not going to be enough to alert a cadaver dog. Yes, they'll smell it. They'll probably have a sniff, but they're not going to alert. It's not strong enough. But when there is sewage pipes, create a massive amount of confusion for dog searches. So if you have a drain that is leaking, like from your toilet, you know, it goes under the ground into the drains, and there's a leak, and nobody knows about that leak because it's underground, then the build-up in the soil, the build-up of scent is enough to confuse a dog and to get it to alert, thinking that there's the scent of a dead body there. It's the same in water courses as well. That, you know, in many places, human sewage in various levels of treatment is piped into rivers, into the ocean, and near sewage pipes, that can confuse a dog too. If anybody remembers the case from West Virginia, this case, I didn't do a live about it. This one, Bryn Hargreaves. Now, Bryn Hargreaves is from my neck of the woods. Was born very close to where I live, but he moved to West Virginia, and he went missing, and he was missing for 14 months until his body was found about 200 to 300 yards away from his house. and he'd been lying there deceased for 14 months, and there'd been numerous searches. But if I just click on this video and show you, in a statement they said, I don't need the sound on here. Have I got a map in here? That is all the searches that were done. I know you can't really see that very clearly, but the different colours mean different things. Now, Bryn was found, I can't remember exactly where it was found, but you can see just how well travelled this entire area is. Now, very close to this, I don't think it's on here. No, it's not on here. But very close to this wooded area where Bryn's body was eventually found, there was a large lake. And the dogs kept hitting on this lake, or at the side of this lake. But it's probably because of sewage that was going into this lake. So that doesn't account for why no one, canine, helicopter, boots on the ground, didn't find him in the woods. But I'm saying that there was some level of confusion during this search because of sewage. So it's just something to bear in mind, that dogs are brilliant. Their sense of smell is brilliant. But the problem is dogs don't speak human, and humans don't speak dog. So when a dog hits, the human has to try to work out what the dog's actually hitting on. And usually, to be honest, it's human error. When a dog hits, the human isn't able to ascertain what that dog's indicating. But sometimes the dog is confused. In live scent tracking searches, dogs can get confused. When, and I've talked about this very recently in relation to the Summer Wells case, that a dog can get confused when the person has walked or ran from one type of ground, like mud or grass, where a scent really digs in, to an artificial surface like concrete or tarmac, where that scent dissipates very quickly. And if only people could speak dog and dog could speak human, and there would be a lot more success in dog searches, because we could actually communicate with them and say, what do you actually smell here? Why have you stopped? Is it that the scent's gone completely, or is it just gone a bit weaker? And the dog might be able to say, oh, it's just gone a bit weaker, so I'm not really going to follow it anymore because it's gone weaker, so I think it's moving away. And in the case of cadaver, you could say to the dog, do you think you're smelling a dead body, or do you think it's just a sewage pipe right there? And the dog will have another sniff and go, no, maybe it is just sewage that I'm smelling. But no, we can't do that, unfortunately. Maybe we need Lassie back. Yeah. Sounds like an excuse for having separate hits on separate properties where nobody was found. Well, we may never know. We may never know whether Michael was actually buried there, or whether it was some kind of false confession because Sarah Wanderer was a bit cuckoo, or Sarah and Stacey were just leading them a merry dance. We don't know. We don't know, and we may never know the answer to that. But what we can be sure about is where Michael isn't. You know, the amount of searches that have been done all around Fruitland and the local area. They searched like 20 odd miles down the Snake River, downstream of the Snake River, thinking that he might have fallen in the river. We know he's not in that property in Redwing Street. There is something, though, that has never been released. That the search inside 1102 Redwing Street they said they found some things of evidentiary value. And they also did some DNA tests, and we've never had the results of that. So if they found Michael's DNA in that house, then that could be the very reason why they believe the cadaver dogs, and they continued to believe the cadaver dogs. Because if Michael's DNA was in that house, the family had no connection with 1102 Redwing Street. There's no way that Michael's DNA could have got into that house other than him being taken there as part of an abduction. If they found his DNA in that house, then it stands to reason that Michael was in that house, and that makes complete sense then that there was cadaver dog hits in the yard. But we don't know. We don't know because we don't know the results of those tests. Christina, member for 10 months. I hope everybody remembers Monkey today. I hope that I'm the first of a number of creators who do missing kids cases that will remember him today, and will continue to keep his name out there and continue to support the family, continue to just hope and pray that eventually there will be answers, and eventually Michael's remains will be found, and eventually there will be justice. Would they drop charges? What's this? Would they drop charges if they found DNA? That would be a slam dunk. Well, no, because the charges against Sarah were for failing to notify authorities of Michael's death. If all they had was her confession that she knew, that's not enough to take that to trial. If she later reneged on that confession. So there was 3 other people living in that house. It's perfectly plausible for Sarah not to know what happened to Michael, but Stacey, Adrian, and Brandon do. So no, it's not a slam dunk when you've got 4 people who potentially are responsible. And also, JD Huff said in December that they believe that there's more people, as well as those 4, who know what went on. So it could be absolutely possible that Michael was buried in that yard and was held in that house for a certain amount of time, but none of the 4 are responsible for his murder. So it's not safe to take a prosecution to trial under those circumstances. Emily, thank you for the $5. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But I think there'll be, some things we'll never know the answer to unless someone credible, or there's more concrete evidence. So let's just see if Fruitland PD have put anything on the Facebook. I doubt they will have. And Police Department. If anybody wants to follow them on Facebook, it's just Fruitland Police Department. No, nothing on yet. So I'm going to leave it there and keep this reasonably brief so that people who are on the replay crew, and I imagine that most people will be given the time of day for over 70% of my audience. It's still very, very early in the AM for the vast majority of my audience. So I'll leave this fairly brief so that it's watchable. And this has been a case review on the 2-year mark of Michael's disappearance. I'll be back later if there is a press conference, but if there is just a written statement, then I'll just put that on my community tab just to update everybody. Lex, last comment, and then I'm going to go. Did you say that the canine could have a dog sit on Brandon's kid's mother's house? They believed they'd got a hit, but what they actually found was a leaking toilet. So that's why we had the discussion of about poop. So, all right, guys, I am going to go. We've got about half an hour till the start, just over half an hour till the start of the Taylor's Your Business trial phase 2. So if you've been following that case, I do have a little playlist. Just my remarks on day 1, day 2, and then I did a live stream late last night, my time. So thank you all for joining me today. Let's just hope and spare some thoughts and some prayers today for Michael's family, for the law enforcement officials who have worked tirelessly over the last 2 years. And let's just hold Michael very close today and hope that answers do come. So, yeah, thank you as always to the mods. And thank you for the donations, for those people who donated. And I'll speak to you maybe later. If not, then tomorrow. Bye, guys.